The Fraser story was never supposed to end quietly, and if Outlander Season 8, Episode 11 is any indication, it will not. Because just when Brianna and Roger begin to believe that the silence settling over Fraser's Ridge is finally peace, something stirs beneath the surface of everything they thought was finished. The stones are not done. The secrets Jaime left behind are not buried deep enough. And the love that held this family together across centuries may be pulling them toward one final chapter that nobody saw coming. Fraser's Ridge has never felt so heavy. The trees still stand the same way they always did. The mountains still hold the same quiet that Jaime Fraser once called home. And the land still carries the same beauty that Claire always loved. But something has changed. Something that cannot be seen but can be felt in every corner of that old house, in every room where memories refuse to leave, in every silence that used to be filled with voices that are no longer there. Jaime is gone, Claire is gone, and the world they built together, the world they fought for, bled for, and sacrificed everything for, now belongs to the people they left behind. It belongs to Brianna. It belongs to Roger. And the weight of that inheritance is not something either of them was fully prepared to carry. Outlander Season 8, Episode 11 may open in a way that feels almost too quiet for a show that has never been afraid of chaos. Fraser's Ridge could be wrapped in the kind of stillness that only comes after something enormous has passed through. The war is over. The battles that defined the last several seasons, the ones that took so much from this family, have finally stopped. And yet the silence does not feel like relief. It feels like a wound that has not yet decided whether it is going to heal or deepen. Brianna moves through the house, the way people move through grief when they are trying to be strong, touching things that belong to her parents without letting herself stop too long, keeping herself busy because stillness is where the pain lives. Roger watches her the way a man watches someone he loves, walking close to the edge of something dangerous, wanting to reach out, but not always knowing how. They are both grieving, they are both trying, and they are both carrying something they have never carried before, which is the full weight of being the last generation of a story that has already become legendary. The episode could spend a significant amount of its early time simply sitting inside that grief without rushing past it, because Outlander has always understood something that lesser shows forget, which is that the emotional truth of a moment matters more than the plot mechanics surrounding it. Brianna does not just miss her mother and father the way someone misses people who have moved away. She misses them the way someone misses a piece of themselves that they know they will never get back. Claire was not just her mother. Claire was the person who taught Brianna what it meant to be brave in a world that punished bravery in women. Jaime was not just her father. Jaime was the man who looked at her across centuries of separation and loved her completely without hesitation, without condition, without ever making her feel like she had to earn that love. Losing both of them, not to tragedy in the conventional sense, but to the unstoppable movement of time and history, is a particular kind of grief that has no clean name and no easy comfort. Roger understands this better than almost anyone could. He is a man who has spent years navigating between worlds, between centuries, between versions of himself that had to be rebuilt every time the stones pulled him somewhere new. He knows what it means to lose a home and then find another. He knows what it means to carry grief quietly because the people around you need you to be steady. And he is trying to be steady now, not because he does not feel the loss, but because he loves Brianna enough to be her anchor, even when his own grief is pulling at him from underneath. But something is happening to Roger in this episode that he cannot explain and cannot ignore. He has been going through Jaime's things, not to sort them or discard them, but because he cannot stop himself. Because something about the way Jaime organized his private papers and personal belongings feels deliberate in a way that goes beyond ordinary order. It feels like someone who knew he would not be there to explain things left a trail for someone else to follow. The letters begin to emerge slowly, the way secrets always do, not all at once, but in fragments that individually seem small and together become enormous. Roger could find the first one tucked inside a book that Jaime kept close. A letter written in Jaime's hand that was clearly never meant for anyone in particular, but also clearly meant for everyone who came after. The language in that letter, according to the way this episode might unfold, is not the language of a man saying goodbye. It is the language of a man who believed that the story was not finished. Jaime Fraser, even in his final years, even having lived through more pain and more love and more history than any single person should have to carry, did not believe that everything ended with him. He believed that the Fraser story had a direction it was still moving toward. He believed that Brianna and Roger were not just the keepers of his memory, but the continuation of something that began long before him and was not yet ready to stop. This is the detail that changes everything in Season 8, Episode 11. Because up until now, the question surrounding Brianna and Roger has been whether they would stay in the past or return to the future. It has been framed as a practical decision, a logistical one even, about where their children would be safer and what life they could build in which time. But Jaime's letter and the additional letters that Roger continues to find as the episode moves forward reframes that question entirely. It is no longer just about safety or comfort or practicality. It becomes about destiny, about whether the Fraser family has a purpose that transcends the ordinary choices of ordinary lives. About whether the stones, which have always been the most mysterious and powerful force in this entire story, are finished with the people they have been moving across time for decades. The signs begin quietly, the way they always do in Outlander, a sound that does not belong to the natural world, heard by Roger one evening when he is alone near the edge of the property, closest to where the old paths used to run. A feeling that Brianna describes to him later, a feeling of being watched by something that does not feel threatening, but does not feel finished either, something that feels like it is waiting. Small things, easy things to dismiss. Roger tries to dismiss them because he is a rational man underneath all the centuries he has traveled, a man who is trained to understand history as something that moves in one direction and does not double back on itself. But he has also traveled through stones. He has also felt time fold around him like something alive, and the part of him that experienced all of that cannot pretend that what is happening around Fraser's Ridge right now is ordinary. Brianna is less surprised than Roger when the signs begin to multiply. She grew up watching her mother live with one foot in the present and one foot in a world that no one else could fully see or understand. She has her own relationship with the strange and the unexplainable, a relationship forged in all those years of being the child of a woman who traveled through time and a father who became legend. When she begins to feel the pull of the stones, she does not immediately run from it or rationalize it away. She sits with it. She asks herself what it means. She asks herself what her mother would have done, which is perhaps the most painful question she can ask herself right now, because asking what Claire would have done means admitting that Claire is not there to be asked anymore. But the letters keep coming. Roger keeps finding them, tucked in different places throughout the house and the land surrounding it, as though Jaime scattered them deliberately across the property, knowing that they would be found in exactly this order at exactly this time. Each letter adds something new to the picture. One speaks about the nature of the stones in a way that suggests Jaime understood more about them than he ever let on during his lifetime. Not in a scientific way, not the way Claire and Brianna approach them with curiosity and analysis, but in a deeply spiritual way. The way a man who spent decades watching time do impossible things eventually comes to understand that the world is larger and stranger and more purposeful than any single human lifetime can contain. Jaime writes about love in a way that connects it directly to time itself, suggesting that the reason the stones respond to certain people and not others is not random, is not genetic in any simple sense, but has something to do with the depth and the nature of the love those people carry. He writes about Claire as though she is not gone, but transformed, as though the love between them exists in some form that time cannot dissolve. Another letter speaks directly to Brianna. It is the most personal of all the letters Roger finds, and when he reads it alone, before deciding whether to show it to her immediately, he has to stop several times because the words are almost unbearably tender. Jaime tells Brianna that she was always the proof he needed that love could move across impossible distances without losing any of its power. He tells her that he watched her grow into someone who could carry the Fraser name not as a burden, but as a gift, and that the thing he is most proud of in his entire life, across all the battles and the sacrifices and the moments of grace and the moments of devastation, is that she never let the hardness of the world make her hard. He tells her that he and Claire will always be with her, not as ghosts or echoes, but as part of the foundation of everything she is, and that she should never make her choices out of grief or guilt, but always out of the same love that brought her parents together across time in the first place. And then, in the final lines of that letter, Jaime writes something that stops Roger completely. He writes that if the stones speak to her again, she should listen. Not because the past requires her to stay in it, not because the future is calling her back, but because the stones, in his experience, have never spoken to anyone without a reason that eventually became clear. This is the moment the episode shifts from grief into something else. Something that is not quite hope and not quite fear, but contains elements of both. The question of whether Brianna and Roger should remain in the past or return to the future is no longer theoretical. The signs around the stones are becoming impossible to ignore. Roger, who has been trying to be practical and steady, finds himself standing at the edge of what he knows and staring into something he cannot map or measure. Brianna, who has been carrying her grief like armor, finds herself feeling something crack open underneath all that strength. Not breaking, but opening. The way a door opens when someone finally stops pushing against it and lets it move. They talk through the night, the two of them, in the way that couples talk when the stakes are too high for anything but complete honesty. Roger tells her everything he has been feeling and trying to rationalize away. Brianna tells him about the pull she has been feeling, about the way the air near the old paths has started to feel different, charged in a way that her body recognizes even when her mind resists. And then there is the question of their children. Because nothing about this decision exists in isolation from the fact that Brianna and Roger are not just themselves anymore. They are parents. They are the people responsible for small lives that did not choose any of this, that did not choose the stones or the centuries or the legacy or the grief. Jaime has his own complicated relationship with the question of time travel, a relationship that has been building throughout the season and that this episode may bring to a point of real urgency. What does it mean to make a choice about time when the person most affected by that choice is a child who cannot fully understand what the choice involves? What does it mean to honor Jaime and Claire's memory while also protecting the future of the next generation? These are not questions with clean answers, and the episode seems to understand that. It does not try to resolve them quickly. It lets them sit in all their discomfort and complexity, the way the best episodes of Outlander always let difficult things breathe instead of rushing to wrap them in false comfort. The mystery deepens as the episode moves into its final movements, because the signs around the stones are not just feelings anymore. Something is happening that cannot be explained away as grief or imagination or the particular way that trauma sometimes makes the world feel haunted. Something is happening that Roger, with all his historical knowledge and all his careful skepticism, cannot find a rational framework for. And the final sequence of the episode, the way it might close if this breakdown is tracking correctly, does not give answers so much as it gives weight to the questions. There is a moment, quiet and extraordinary, that suggests the Fraser story has one more turn in it, one more movement, one more chapter that neither Brianna nor Roger expected to find themselves standing at the beginning of. And it connects, in a way that feels both inevitable and surprising, to everything Jaime believed about love and time and the particular destiny of this family. The closing moments of Outlander Season 8, Episode 11 may be among the most haunting the show has ever produced. Not because anything violent or dramatic happens in those final minutes, but because of what they imply. Because of the possibility they open up. Because of the way they take everything the episode has built, all the grief and the letters and the signs and the impossible conversations between two people trying to figure out who they are now that the people who define them are gone, and fold it into a single image or moment that lands like a quiet earthquake. The kind of ending that does not make noise, but makes everything that came before it feel different in retrospect. The kind of ending that sends you back to the beginning of the episode in your mind and makes you realize that what you thought was an ending was actually something being set in motion. Because some love stories do not end, They transform. They move through time the way time itself moves, not in a straight line, and not always in ways that make sense from inside the moment, but always toward something. Jaime Fraser believed that. Claire Fraser proved it. And now, Brianna and Roger, standing on the edge of a mystery that the Stones have been building toward for longer than either of them realized, may be about to find out what it means to be the next chapter of a story that was never really finished, that was only ever pausing, that was only ever gathering itself for one more extraordinary movement across the distance between what was and what is still possible. And if Outlander Season 8, Episode 11 delivers even half of what it seems capable of delivering, that movement may be the most beautiful and devastating thing this show has ever put on screen.